Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker. You are listening to episode 175 of the podcast, or you're joining us live here on YouTube. Maybe. I don't know if the Wi-Fi is holding up strong enough to keep us on the live stream. Today is Sunday, February the 9th. We are coming off of UFC 247, Jon Jones versus Dominick Reyes. Before we get into that, let me introduce the man to my left, joining me for his first ever podcast experience, amateur mixed martial artist, local fighter here in Tampa, veteran of our great United States Marine Corps, Mr. Allison, Matty Ice. Matt, thanks for joining the show, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. I see we got a championship belt here. For those watching on YouTube, you can see half of it here in the picture. Vigilant MMA. This thing will be on the line next weekend. Tell me about your upcoming fight.
So next weekend, February 15th, I have my 135-pound amateur title defense against Javier Gonzalez, fighting at a Fusion XL. I will be defending the strap for the first time, so I'm very excited. They say a real champion defends, so that's what I'm here to do. We'll see what happens. We'll see if I go pro after this, depending on how this fight goes. Hopefully it will be in spectacular, dominant fashion. Been working hard, and we'll see. But for right now, the mission is to defend and not vacate. So let's do it.
Awesome. So for those who don't know, in the state of Florida, you need 5 amateur fights before you are permitted to go pro. There are loopholes and everything like that. But if you go by the book, 5 amateur fights, then you can go pro. You already have 5 under your belt. This will be number 7, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Okay. So yeah, is the plan, if this goes well, are we going pro? If it doesn't go well, are we just going to go pro? What's your mindset going into this? Or are you just trying to focus on the task at hand here?
I've got 2 pretty big factors on my mind for this. As far as technique goes, I know how to fight. I feel pretty comfortable everywhere. Mm-hmm. A lot of guys around the Tampa area seem to know me as a grappler, but that's just because in all my fights, once I start putting hands on people, that's where it goes. They start shooting for those takedowns. I do compete a lot in wrestling. I do compete a lot in jiu-jitsu. However, I'm 26 years old now, right? Mm-hmm. I got in the game a little late. I'm still young. I feel great, but I want to start making my mark. Now, that second issue I was mentioning is the fact that I'm in college, right? Uh-huh. It's hard to be taking 18 credits. You're learning about kinesiology, and then you got to fight a guy next week and cut weight while you have exams. So, yes, I plan on going in there. I plan on showing a very dynamic skill set, putting pressure on this man. And if I get that green light from Billy Q, who is my manager, and he's a UFC fighter, if I get that green light to go pro, I will. The only thing is will I be very active? I don't think I will be until I graduate college. So I'll have to be very picky and choosy. So I may or may not take one more amateur fight, maybe in the April-May time frame. But the plan is I would really like to be able to go pro in mid to late summer, where I can have that time away from school, really put the emphasis on training, put on some weight, because as what we'll get into is I'm really light for an amateur, for a bantamweight fighter.
Sure.
So really I got 2 options. That's go down to 25 and murder some children, or I got to put on some man weight and stay at 35. So we'll see.
Yeah, we don't want any children murdered. So maybe let's go with the weight gain option. So you're talking about how you're pretty light for a 135, or what do you normally walk around at?
I mean, a gentleman never tells, but I'm not a gentleman today. So I walk around at about 142 pounds. So okay. I barely cut any weight.
You don't have to worry about being a gentleman here. We drink a lot of whiskey on this show. All right. So tell me what you know about your opponent. You told me he trains at Fusion XL, which is a pretty friendly gym with your gym, Gracie Tampa South. There's a lot of cross training that goes on between these 2 gyms. But other than where he's training, which it sounds like he's pretty new at that gym anyway. What do you know about this guy? You're about to get in there.
So I'm going to be honest. I don't know too much on him. I've only seen one of his fights. I don't particularly like to stalk other fighters and look at things, because I feel like when you do that, you tend to give someone something. You know what I mean? Like, let's say someone lands some clean shots or gets some good takedowns, right? Now in your head, you're thinking, oh, like their takedown game is good, or their hands are clean. But really the guy they were fighting could have just been garbage, right? And now you're glorifying a man that might not have anything on you. So all I know about him is that looking at his record, looking at his fights, he's not afraid to get in a fist fight. Right? He's pretty durable. So he can go in there, he can take some shots, he can give some shots. He goes for takedowns, he goes for strikes. So I see him bringing a very dynamic fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not insulting the man at all, but I don't see him shining anywhere particularly. And that's the thing. So
I like the mentality, and it seems to be a common mentality in this Gracie Tampa network of not really researching opponents too much, especially at this level. Your opponent here, it seems like he hasn't fought in about a year. He's at a new gym. So you could be researching the guy, looking up all his fights, and then be standing across from somebody completely different.
He might even look completely different. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of plastic surgeons in Florida.
Some good ones.
Yeah, some real good ones. He may be a different gender by next week. Who knows?
I don't want to beat up a girl, you know. So
yeah, we don't want to see that. So tell me about the actual process of fighting as an amateur in Florida, because I know you bounced around from a couple of different promotions. Is there one that you favor more than the other? Obviously, we're promoting Vigilant right now. But have you found a pretty uniform experience, or is it completely different every time?
So I'm glad you brought that up. It is night and day depending on the promotion you fight for as an amateur. Mm-hmm. And to me, what really keeps me coming back to one organization or the other comes down to convenience or my relationship with the owner. Mm-hmm. So I'll say that my favorite fighting experience has come from fighting for Rival, believe it or not, under Ross Kelleher. Okay. And that's just because I admire the guy. He's awesome. He's dead honest with you. There's no bullshit in his game, you know? Like, yeah. He tells you what he expects. He tells you who you're going to fight. And that's it. And he's always looking. Yeah. I fought for WCFL a few times. And that's nice because they have a great production. Yeah. So all your fights, it's very professional. You walk in there, like, I've seen professional boxing fights at the JCC over there, and I mean, it looked like our amateur fights were put together more professionally than those pro boxing fights were. And what's nice is after those fights, people can look you up, they can watch your fights online. Rival doesn't quite have the production, but they have great fighters. Yeah. And then with Vigilant here, we got Brandon Lee in charge of Vigilant. He's doing his very best. He's putting some great events together. He's getting all the biggest names he can from the Tampa area to fight. So right now, I'm fighting for him because he's putting the most out there right now, right? And I appreciate that. It's just nice to get in there and see different looks. And I like the fact that they're half amateur, half pro. Yeah. So that's just that exposure to see professional fights and amateur fights under the same light and realize, like, we're not that far away. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then, you know, it makes that progression a little bit easier if you decide to turn pro and you could stay within a familiar promotion. Right. That'll probably make it an easier transition for you. So you mentioned the Jewish Community Center over here in Tampa. I've been to some of those WCFL shows, including some of your fights. They do an excellent job. They do video, very professional for amateur fights. Your fight next weekend is going to be at Mini Reg Hall in Largo, Florida. You know, before we move on with the interview here, you want to let people know how they can get tickets or how they can watch or everything like that? Yeah, absolutely, guys. So if you go on to vigilantmma.com, you'll select the event for February 15th. It'll be called Combat Quest 6 or CQ6. All you do is you go to select tickets, and then once you select tickets, you select the choice that you want. So they've got VIP tables, they've got different rows, they've got general admission. Once you select your ticket, it'll give you a list of names, fighter names. You click on the name that you want to support that fighter. Now, there's also a live streaming option if you can't get there, right? So if you can't make the event, you can watch from anywhere in the United States. Same deal. You go on to vigilantmma.com, and then there'll be a little drop box up in the top right-hand corner, I believe. And then you'll be able to select buying a live stream, and you'll be able to watch me fight live. If the connection gets bad, it's not my fault, guys. All right? Don't come at Matty Ice for that. And then one more thing. If you're in the local area, I do have some physical tickets. They're going for $40. So hit me up before I have to get rid of those on Friday during my weigh-in.
Yeah, definitely reach out to Matt. You can reach him on his social media, Matty Ice MMA on Instagram. Is there another way people can get a hold of you?
I guess you can get a hold of me on Facebook, guys. I don't really use it, but I get tagged from people in the community in the gym.
All right, go with the Instagram. So you mentioned your coaching staff, specifically Billy Quarantello, who's a big friend of the show. He's been on here a couple of times. UFC fighter, one of the most successful fighters to come out of the area by far. So tell me about your team and your coaching staff, because I like I like the way you were telling me about how you're thinking about going pro and how you have all these different aspects of your life that are going to go into it. But specifically, you're trusting your coaches to help you make that decision. So tell me a little bit about the team, and let's give them a little bump here.
So we like to look at Billy Q, or at least I know a lot of people share the same opinion, but Billy Q is kind of like our General Mattis, you know. He's a crazy guy. He's a hell of a leader. He's always in the trenches with us. You won't catch us at sprints without him being there early in the morning. He won't ask us to do anything that he wouldn't do, but that's the thing, you know, the guy wants to be successful. He trains. If you check his Instagram out, the guy's up at 5 a.m. lifting, then doing privates, then training, then eating, then training. I don't think he has a personal life, to be honest. That's all right. Okay. And he puts that on us, and he keeps on us. You know what I mean? If I go out and I party one weekend, the man knows. I'm telling you, he's got satellites up in the sky. Don't know how he found that out, but he's got things working, and I love that about him. You know, he will make sure that we're doing what we have to do. And if you're not doing what you have to do, he puts your goals in your face, because we don't have unlimited time in this world. You know what I mean? And he makes that very clear. The guys that are starting now in this blowing up sport, they're starting when they're like 6 years old. They're doing jiu-jitsu, they're wrestling, right? So if we're getting started later in the game, we have to work that much harder to beat these guys, and he makes it clear. Now, as far as the team goes, they all have that same drive, I feel like. If you go into the gym, whether you're going to like CAP classes, so advanced classes, or you're going into MMA specific, like the team specific training classes, you're going to see the same guys, right? The same set of guys, and they all want to push each other really, really hard. So it's awesome. So every time I go in that gym, I got a mean wrestler I can go with that's bigger than me. I got a guy that's got mean boxing, mean kickboxing, amazing cardio, right? You'll see everything in there, and I love it, man. It's just it's a great team community, and there's some killers in there. So
yeah, for sure. I definitely like what you said about Billy throwing your goals in your face and having that accountability. I think that's an important quality for a coach to have, and it's important to have the respect of your fighters to the point where you can hold them accountable. Because if you don't have their respect and you try and push their goals in their face, right, you know, there's a lot of ego that comes along with being a cage fighter, and it's not always a good mixture. You don't always have that perfect blend of respect and forcing accountability. So it's definitely a good thing that you have that, because I've been around the sport for a long time. I've been around a lot of gyms, and I've seen a lot of toxic environments. So it's definitely good to have positive people around like that. That holds you accountable.
Yeah, Billy, he likes to get on me. It's funny, for a little period of time, I was what we called the black sheep on the team. So when I separated from the Marine Corps, I wanted to live my life a little bit. You know, I was going to college, so I started going to a lot of music festivals. Right? Yeah, I just loved going to do that. So I'd fight, go to music festivals. Sometimes go to a music festival inside of a training camp. You know.
Oh boy.
And that would set him off. So he'd come down on me publicly, and what he likes to do is, after sparring on Thursday nights, right? He doesn't like to say the individual's name, but he makes it very clear who he's talking about.
So you know.
So you know, but they all know as well. And there have been times where I've literally grabbed another teammate and be like, does this guy forget I've deployed twice? Like, I'm not a little kid anymore, you know, but I appreciate that. That's what you're talking about, is that we respect him so much that even though, like, I'm a grown-ass man, you know, I've done some things, but Billy will come on me and treat me like a kid, and for that honesty, I appreciate it. You know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think in a lot of situations, it's easy for that ego to kind of blow up, and it's like, why is he talking?
Why is he talking to me like that?
Yeah, you know, like you said, those thoughts that cross your mind. I've deployed twice. I've been in cage fights. I've done all this stuff. You know, who is this guy to tell me? But then the fact that you realize that he has your best interest in mind and he wants to see you succeed kind of is what checks that ego. But it's not always the case. I've seen it not work out more often than I've seen it work out, you know, because fighters are tricky people to deal with. There's definitely an odd psychology there. Talk to me a little bit about your military experience. Obviously, you have that Marine work ethic that you bring into the gym, but is there anything else that you feel like had pushed you towards this cage fighting lifestyle or helps you out with your training, you know, besides that work ethic?
So I joined the Marine Corps when I was 18. Technically speaking, I actually enlisted when I was 17, but I had to graduate high school before I went, right?
Sure.
So by the time I had gone in, it was the summer right after I graduated high school, so I was 18 years old. Left my family, Got stationed in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, which if anyone here is listening has been to that area of the world, it's Jacksonville, North Carolina. It's just tattoo parlors, strip clubs, and bars, right? There's really not much else to do out there. That lifestyle, though, was what I needed. Because growing up, I was always pissed off for no reason. And don't get me wrong, my parents were phenomenal. Like, they gave me everything I could need or want. Yeah. It's not like I grew up in an abusive household or anything like that. For those of you that don't know, actually, this might come to a surprise. My mom is actually full-blown Peruvian. Like, she immigrated here when she was 17. It's actually why I've got Inti on my arm here. It's a symbol of good luck and prosperity in Peru. But I like to joke around and say that if you can survive a Hispanic mother, you can survive anything, right? So going into the Marine Corps, I was like, I've already lived 18 years of dictatorship, okay? So it's all good. But I joined the infantry. And that lifestyle, I don't know what it was, but for the first time ever, I just felt like I had direction, right? All the anger, all the boredom, all the ADHD, everything, just like it became so clear to me what I had to do. Like, you have to learn these weapon systems. You have to learn how to give these orders. You have to know how to go through these procedures because it's important. There's no game. There's no excuse. Like, everything that you do is on you. You know what I mean? And it's a merit-based system. It's not like mommy and daddy gave someone this, or this kid drives this car, or they wear these clothes. You're all the same, and you have to work based on merit to get where you want to be, and I love that. So one of the jobs that I took up was I was a martial arts instructor, right? I became an MAI. So I was teaching Marines, and I actually led a whole fleet of Marines on our last deployment on 26 MU, and I was in charge of the martial arts program. So while I was doing this, I was like, man, I love this stuff, you know? And I was a big fan of the UFC. I'll never forget the night Ronda Rousey got knocked out by Holly Holm. We were on ship just outside of Iraq, right? Wow. The whole ship was roaring when she got KO'd. Sorry to Ronda, right? I'm not like necessarily celebrating your loss here, but it took everyone by surprise. And that's when I knew. I was like, one day I want to be that guy fighting, and I want to have a bunch of Marines losing their damn mind somewhere when they're bored as hell, scared as hell, whatever. I just want them to have something to look forward to.
So it's the kind of thing where everybody that was on the ship comes and they put the fights on.
Everyone.
That's awesome.
It's something to look forward to.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. Like, this sport has grown so much, right? I just remember watching like the old Ultimate Fighters, and no one really knew about it. Like, they're fighting on Spike TV and stuff like that. But now there are household names. Yeah. And it's crazy, right? You never used to hear about the MMA casuals. People diss MMA casuals, right? They're like, these guys don't know anything. But here's the thing, like, at least random people are speaking about our sport now. Yeah. They might not know shit, but at least it's in their mouth. It's in a household, and that's what's awesome.
Yeah. I personally, I don't like the term casual as something negative. I like to think that as part of the MMA media, it's my job to inform these people, not put them down. Exactly. Because if you kind of insult them and say, you don't know anything, you're just a casual fan, you're turning them away from the sport that you want to grow. But, you know, that's a whole thing we can get into. But that was not the answer that I was expecting, but it is an awesome answer. I especially love the part about surviving a Hispanic mother.
I'm just saying.
Because my in-laws are Peruvian as well. Really? So, yeah.
That's how it is.
Yeah. Well, I survive a Hispanic mother-in-law. So I guess I'm in the club. I better get one of those tattoos.
Guys, my father, okay? My father only gave me 2 pieces of advice. It was hilarious. I'll never forget this. It's when I was 17, right? It was right after I joined the military because he told me not to, and I did anyway. We were at dinner, and my recruiter showed up. He was pissed. So he goes, listen, I think you got a good head on your shoulders. He's like, I think you're pretty tough. I don't necessarily worry about you going out and getting beat up or making a dumb decision. He's like, but if I could just give you 2 pieces of advice in your life, it's have your own separate bank account. Don't marry a Hispanic woman. he's like, I didn't get these white hairs because of my genetics. So
I feel like I'm gonna have to reach for that hair dye pretty soon. So yeah, I think your dad and I have a lot in common. All right, so before I get myself in trouble here, let's get into some professional mixed martial arts here. Since I have you here on the show, we might as well break down UFC 247. So let's start at the top. Jon Jones defending his light heavyweight championship against Dominick Reyes. Very close fight. We were talking about this a little bit off air. You told me you were kind of going back and forth on how you feel about it. There's been a lot of debate amongst fans that I've seen on social media and things like that. There's a lot of people, and I think a lot of it is rooted in there's a lot of people who want to see Jones fail, probably because of, all the bullshit in his personal life. And, they don't really like the way he carries himself, or whatever the reason, or, some people just don't want to see somebody succeed for so long. But putting all that aside and being totally unbiased about it, who do you think won this main event fight last night in Houston, Texas?
Wow. I mean, I hope I don't take too much speculation on this one, but before I just give you an answer, I have to add this one bit of information in it, okay? It's not necessarily meant to be a counter question, but it kind of is.
Okay.
Who do you think went for the kill in that fight?
Well, in the beginning of the fight, Reyes, because he definitely, came smoking out of the barrel. But it kind of seemed like Jones's game plan was to let him kind of blow his wad in the beginning and then put it on him in the championship rounds, which is what happened, because I thought the most dominant round was probably that 5th round.
Really?
I thought so, just because the pressure from Jones. But if you ask me who wanted it more and phrase the question that way, I would say Reyes.
So at the end of the fight, I didn't know where it was going to go. In my head, I was thinking, like, how would I rate this? Forget the judges. We all know that they're not reliable. How would I rate this fight? In my head, I was thinking, if we just go strictly off of rounds, okay, I think Dominick Reyes won the first 3 rounds. Don't get me wrong, the 3rd round was close, and Jones clearly took the last 2. There's no question about that. So if we speculate on the 3rd round, I think Reyes caught the better of the striking exchanges. Now, I think the 3rd round is where we saw that onset of Jones's front pressure, right? Moving forward. And we have to understand that now in the new updated rules, pressure, octagon control is what we're calling it, right? Octagon control or pressure is part of the scoring system. But there's like no scale on what matters more, right?
Yes.
Does a significant strike relate to how many seconds of forward pressure?
Yeah.
We don't have that scale to judge. But I think that Dominick Reyes controlled 60 to 70% of that round. Yes, Jones may have gotten in and gotten a takedown, but what is a takedown if you just touch your butt and come up? Why was he taking him down is the question. Was he afraid to commit to the boxing exchanges?
Yeah.
And that's what my biggest point is I think his takedown efforts were simply efforts to get points in the scoring system. And again, there's a scoring system, but I think Reyes' commitment to being in that pocket and fighting was to create damage in the fight.
Yeah.
So when I look at it from that perspective, we go from where Reyes was quite literally chasing Jones in the 1st and 2nd round, blowing his wad, but in the 3rd round committing, and Jones is trying to get points.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's some great analysis. Here's the thing, and there's always that old saying that people in the business are really starting to get annoyed by, is to be the champ, you got to beat the champ, and you got to do it convincingly. And just to give a little bit more insight to the judges, like you said, they're not reliable, but just to give a little more insight, that mentality comes from boxing, because back in the 90s in boxing, if the fight went 12 rounds, the champ won, no matter what. It doesn't matter what happened in those 12 rounds. Granted, there's more margin for error because there's 12 rounds, but if it went the distance, the champ wins. And for the Texas Athletic Commission, you have boxing judges. They're boxing guys. They know boxing. That's what they know. So they have that mentality. At the end of the round, that round was close, champ got it. The thing that I thought was crazy, because I agree, I think 1 and 2 were clear for Reyes, 4 and 5 were clear for Jones, and that 3rd round is where it kind of gets a little muddy, because what do you value more, the significant strikes or the takedowns that maybe you could even argue you don't even score his takedowns because he touched and got back up. What I thought was crazy is 2 of those judges gave the 2nd round to Jon Jones, which is nuts to me. And one judge gave 2 through 5 to Jon Jones. So that really just shows, like, that guy is the most boxing mentality judge on the whole panel, because he sees, all right, this guy's the champ. He made it out of that round. The champ won that round. That's just how boxing judging worked. And it's something that we need to move away from. I hate to be a problem identifier and not a problem solver, but we definitely need to revamp the judging criteria. I know you've been a part yourself personally of some controversial split decisions. What is that feeling like when you know you were involved in a close fight, but you know in your heart that you were the better fighter in there, and then you're waiting for that moment to hear what these three people thought about it?
So that is hard to deal with. And I'm telling you, I don't know what it is about human mentality, but sometimes, and this isn't a circumstance, I'm not going to name the fighter or the organization, right? And then if you think professional judges are bad, you should see amateur judges, especially, not knocking on anyone again, but especially if those judges are in the network of the gym that the person's fighting from. Just saying. That's a little sketchy, right? But I feel like sometimes when you're the more aggressive fighter, or let's say you're the more skilled fighter, sometimes the other guy gets rewarded because you weren't able to do what you wanted to them. And I don't mean as in you couldn't get shots off or takedowns, but it's like because you couldn't finish the guy, they're like, oh, like that's awesome. He survived in there with you in these situations. Like, we should reward him for that. Yeah. Like, no, we shouldn't reward him for that. We should reward him for being able to do something to you. Yeah. So this is where I get a little concerned, okay? When it comes to these split decisions, right? We have the whole takedown concept. We were talking about this with Jones and Reyes. If you take a guy down and you're on top of him, right? If you're not moving to pass guard and if you're not throwing punches, but you're holding him down, in any form of grappling martial art, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, that would be considered stalling. Right. But for whatever reason in these fights, in their head, they're like, I've got 30 seconds left. Let me just get him to the ground and hold him. Yeah. Right? To me, and this isn't just trying to be biased, that's because you're doing it out of desperation. Like, I can't get what I want on this guy, so I'm just going to hold him here. Yeah. How long can you hold someone there? You know what I mean? Realistically. Yeah. So, I don't know, but it's tough. It's tough being there when you think you put in the work. You know, like, you don't know at the time, but after you go back through and count strikes that you landed, you know you landed more, you took less, you had more time on control, whatever. But at the end of that fight, when you know you want to fight, the only way you have to really prove to yourself that you won, look at the other guy's corner. When they're calling that split decision and you look across the cage, your coaches are here already ready to take pictures of you, give you hugs, stuff like that. And they're praying across the cage from you. Please let my buddy get this. Please let my buddy get this, right? In your head, you know they won that fight. Yeah. All right? And it's on their face, too. It's a tough thing with the judges, especially because they're in the arena. They can hear the crowd. The people are shouting things, and they can hear it. They're taking it all in. I think that the judges should be in, like, a soundproof room where they have a monitor that they're watching, and they can't be influenced by anything aside from some other criteria. They should probably be paid better so more qualified people will want to do it. I mean, that's not a job I could see anybody wanting because they don't get paid a lot. Yeah, they get to watch fights all night and get paid to do it, but you're never going to be the good guy because you see things a certain way, and there's always going to be somebody who sees it different. It's a tough job, and I don't want to defend them by any means because the judging was all over the place last night, and that's more so my problem. If it were consistent and I could see like they were favoring takedowns the whole night, then I get it. I get why Jon Jones won that fight because, he did get Reyes to the ground and it looked like it was tough to do that. But there was no consistency with that because Latifi was able to get Derek Lewis to the ground and he lost the decision. And he was actually able to hold him down there to the point where the referee had to stand him back up, which I'm against stand-ups myself. I don't know your feeling on it, but I know you say it's stalling to hold somebody down, but I feel like if the guy can't get up, then he's got to stay there for 5 minutes or however long it is. But since I brought it up, let's skip around a little bit. Let's talk about Derek Lewis and Ilir Latifi making his heavyweight debut last night. So two guys who had very different body types than we're used to seeing from them. But what did you think about this fight? So I'll be honest with you, I actually missed that fight.
Okay.
I was heading to go meet up with Alon Cruz, who's in the UFC. I like to go to a place called Duffy's here in Tampa, and I watched tons of fights with him and some other guys from my team. And I was actually getting my girlfriend, who was a little hungover from the night before, and just stayed in all day. So I actually missed that fight.
Nice.
I came in just to see the end, and I was like, wow. But I got the same rundown. Latifi was taking him down, holding him to the ground, which in my head, I love Derek Lewis, by the way, guys, just because of how he acts. You know,
Yeah.
if you don't find some quality gold in his commentary, then I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
But I kind of figured Ilir Latifi would take him down and hold him there. And from what I was told, that's what happened.
And, you know, he absorbed some big shots from Derek Lewis as well. So his chin holds up at heavyweight. I still feel like, I mean, here's a guy who could be fighting at middleweight. And he's like, I haven't been having success at light heavyweight. Let me get bigger. And he weighed in at like 240 something. Meanwhile, Lewis looked the trimmest he's ever looked. So not the most exciting fight on the card. But let's get to the co-main event here. So somebody asked me before this card, who's more likely to lose between the main event and the co-main event? And I said, Jon Jones is more likely to lose because he can get caught with a big shot. You know, they're bigger fighters, the higher the weight class, typically more power they have. You know, there's exceptions, obviously, but anything can happen at those bigger weight classes. One shot can end the fight. Whereas Katlyn Chookagian, I feel like, you know, she's a point style fighter, and there's nothing wrong with that, but she would have to outpoint Valentina Shevchenko for 5 rounds to win that one. So I felt like she had less chance of winning. I thought she would be in it a little bit more than she was in it. But man, what a performance by the Bullet here. So give me your thoughts on this co-main event.
I've said it to multiple people, and I'm going to continue to say it as long as this woman continues to get better. But I want none of Valentina Shevchenko. I don't care if she's lighter than me. If you put me in that octagon with her, I am going to do anything I can to get her to the floor. Her striking is phenomenal, and that's not just for female fighters. That's for striking in general. Mm-hmm. It is so crisp. Her reads, her counters, her slips, everything. Like, that woman just knows where she's at. Mm-hmm. When she hit that, like, wheel kick to the face, like, right over the guard. To be able to know, to be able to create that space and get your foot over someone's guard when they're coming in, like, on a taller fighter, it's amazing, right? And she didn't have to risk that. She was doing very well with her boxing. She was landing that too in there. She was timing it perfectly. But again, that's just her style. She knows she's so phenomenal. And when she gets loose, it's scary. Yeah. When she feels comfortable and knows her timing, it's scary to see how good that woman is. So heading into the fight, I kind of figured that Valentina Shevchenko would finish it, but I thought it would be from a head kick KO. I really saw it coming. Mm-hmm. Leading up to the fight, I saw highlight videos, and who's killer name? Chookagian. I was watching her highlight videos, and she's got that almost like a kind of Wonder Boy style in a way. She's got that traditional striking background, but she dips her head out to make people miss. I'm thinking in my head, you can't do that with Valentina. You'll eat that head kick, right? Yeah. I did not see the ground and pound coming. Yeah. Her wrestling was so good. Anytime that Chookagian would overextend herself, Valentina got her hips in, simple outside trips to the ground, and she was just so dominant. That crucifix came in, and that was it. That was all I wrote. I
think her grappling is very underrated too. I mean, she's submitted black belts in the UFC, and she had so much top control over Chookagian, who's a very accomplished grappler herself. Trains at Renzo Gracie's in New York City. She's got a great team out there. Trains at Law MMA a bunch as well, who are big time friends of the show. You know, you would think like maybe she would have an advantage on the ground, but you know, Valentina was just so dominant, and that crucifix that she grabbed, they asked her afterwards if it was something she worked on. She was like, no, it's just kind of there. And you know, Caitlyn was doing the right things to try and get out of it. She was trying to, you know, get her shoulders out from underneath Valentina, and just couldn't budge her. And that's a scary thing when you're standing with someone, and Chookagian even kind of pulled guard towards the end there. You're standing with someone and you know they're getting the better of you. So like, let me get this to the ground any way I can. And they get the better of you there too. That's got to be the most disheartening thing. But I mean, for my money, Valentina Shevchenko is one of the most impressive fighters, male or female, on the planet.
She's up there.
I mean, I think if she were a little bit bigger, you know, maybe the fights would have gone differently with Amanda Nunes. You know, that first fight, and I say this every time Valentina fights, That first fight, she lost the first 2 rounds, but that third round, she was putting it on her. If that were a 5-round fight, maybe a different story. And then their more recent fight, I thought it could have gone either way. I thought it was really close. And everybody talks about Nunes being the greatest, but I want to see that third fight, even though Valentina lost 2. Like, I kind of want to see her get in there with Amanda now that she has this newfound momentum. I think it'll still be fun to see it a third time.
So I share that opinion, actually. In my mind, it goes Valentina, Shevchenko, and then Amanda Nunes.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I believe that is because you see how dominant that Valentina is in her own weight class. But she's also fought Holly Holm. She's fought Amanda Nunes.
Mm-hmm.
She's fought Joanna, and she's just done well against all of the current best female athletes.
Mm-hmm.
But she's the smallest of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, not Joanna, but she's smaller than Amanda and Holly Holm significantly. We're talking about 145-pound champions and title contenders, right?
Mm-hmm.
Compared to the 125-pound champion. So that's just impressive. If we look at male fighters, right, there's no way in heck you're just going to, play down someone moving up from 45 to 70.
Yeah.
Or from 70 to light heavyweight, you know? And be like, oh, yeah, but that person was better. How? You can take someone to a split decision who's the best in the world at that weight, and they're 2 weight classes above you.
Yeah.
You're talking about a woman that just walks around her own weight, and she's confident in her own skills.
Yeah.
And I will say this, having a Glock tattooed on your body, that's bad news, man.
She's a badass, man. And, she spent a lot of time in Peru. She lived there for 10 years, I believe. Even holds up the Peruvian flag before she fights. The heavyweights, Justin Tafa and Juan Adams. Tafa just nasty. Probably overextended with the shot that finished Juan Adams, but it finished Juan Adams. Give me your thoughts on this heavyweight contest.
What's so interesting about that, right? So from the lead hook, a lot of people throw those lead hooks to either create a check hook and distance to set up the straight. You don't necessarily see a winding lead hook and then a follow through to the same side because you're still on the rail, right? But when he clipped him with that, the fact that he saw it, and I like to diss on a lot of heavyweights, doesn't mean I want to fight any of those guys.
Yeah.
But let's just be honest here. Until we talk about the top 5 in the heavyweight division, you're seeing a lot of heavyset dudes whose actual framework could make them light heavyweights, middleweights, right? Sure. They just, they're middleweights that have heavyweight diets.
Yeah.
That's how I like to look at it. But he sets up that lead hook, recognizes that he caught him, reloads his hips, and crushes him with that lead uppercut.
Mm-hmm.
That was just very, very, very impressive reactional time to see from that guy. And he smelled blood, and he followed through with it. And I just don't think Juan Adams, honestly, he mentioned that he'd been training like never before. But if you looked at his stance, it was really weird how we had the whole fingers out thing for a while. But he was backing up long like this, chin in the air. He wasn't using any lateral movement. And I mean, at that weight, like you were mentioning earlier, people that big, you can't take shots from those guys.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Yeah. I mean, the heavyweights in particular typically get away with sloppier technique. You don't see – it's usually big guys. It's not guys who are accomplished boxers or accomplished wrestlers. They do exist, like Stipe and DC and guys like that. But they're few and far between. Even accomplished grapplers at heavyweight you don't see because I have a theory that it's harder to be an accomplished grappler the bigger you are because you get away with doing things that are poor technique. So for a smaller guy, it's easier to develop technique because you need it.
Right.
But if your technique's not on point against bigger opponents, you're just going to get smashed. But for some of the heavier guys, like we've seen Derek Lewis bench press his way out of side control how many times, which every grappling coach on the world will tell you not to do that. But yeah, it's interesting how they get away with things like that. But that's why the heavyweights are exciting to watch. Dan Ige and Mirsad Bektic. This was another close fight, another split decision. How did you see this one going?
So I actually agree with the decision. I saw that there was a lot of commentary online saying that that Bektic got robbed. Sorry if I'm killing his name.
No,
Again, not trying to insult anybody out here. I was just phenomenally impressed with Dan Ige in the first round. That guy came in there. It looked like he was a fighter in his third round that had found his stride, found the other guy's timing, but he started that way in the first round. I mean, he just looked so clean in that pocket. Even in the wrestling exchanges, he was getting the better of him at first.
Yeah.
You know, like that first round, Ige looked phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
He put in that work. But in the second round, complete switch, right? It was completely Dominick by Bektic. He almost actually finished him. Ige said that head and arm choke wasn't too deep or that he wouldn't have tapped from it because he trains with the best guys in this gym. But let's be honest, you know, that was a pretty dangerous position and he had control. So in my eyes, it was dead even. Dominant first round for Ige, dominant second round for Bektic.
Mm-hmm.
Going into that third, I really do truthfully believe that Ige did what he had to do to beat him.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I say that is because this is back to the whole, like, who wanted the kill, right? The only unfortunate thing about the scoring system of takedowns, why are you taking the guy down? Are you taking him down because you're taking him down to Khabib him? And this is why I don't ever complain about Khabib. If you're going to take him down to smash him, right, great. You should be awarded for that because now you are controlling your element of the game, right? But if you're just going for takedowns because you're afraid to get knocked out, right, why is that you winning? So in my opinion, Ige was able to stop the takedowns in the third round. You were stopping the other guy's skill set and forcing him to play your game. I think that was why he won that fight because if you look at it in straight desperation, who really had the chance of finishing who in that third round?
Yeah.
I don't think Bektic had the chance of finishing Ige.
That's a great analysis. The only thing I might question you on is the intentions of the takedown is something that's so hard to prove. Like, how do you prove the guy was afraid to stand with the other guy? Like, you know, as a spectator, it may be obvious, like, oh, he doesn't want that smoke on the feet. That's why he took him down. But, you know, if you ask that guy, he might say, like, no, I saw the opening. You know, I saw him put all his weight on that leg, and I took it and went down with it. And, you know, maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle. Right. So to kind of project, like, you know, he's doing things because he's afraid to do something else, that it gets a little muddy there. But that's why judging is hard, and I would never ever want to do it.
Yeah, and it's impossible to know what's going on. And again, this is just my view, right? My version of the spectacle here. But when I look at a fighter, when I'm watching these fights at the highest level, right, when they're going for takedowns, so there's no one generic way to have a fight, right? Every coach is going to tell you to do things differently. So me personally, when I look at it, if I'm going for takedowns, right, and they're not successful, let's say I've taken 3 shots in a 5-minute fight, right, or a 5-minute round. I've taken 3 shots in this one round. He stuffed all of them, but I did them very closely to each other, right? So if I went for these 3 shots and they got shut down, why am I continuing to do that? Why would I not try to use this MMA? Why would I not try to use my striking, get his mindset off of the takedowns, right? Hurt him with strikes, raise his hands with strikes, open the legs up, and then take him down. And that's why I kind of had that analysis of he really did not want to be there in the pocket with them. That, or maybe he just knew, hey, this is a close fight, 1-1. I just have to get him to the ground for points. That could be another thing.
Sure.
But it was the rate at which he was trying to get him to the ground, right? And this is kind of a rough analogy, but I'm going to use it anyway. Credit pools, right? You pull your credit too many times, what happens to your credit score? It goes down, okay? Why are people doing these hard pulls on you? Same thing. Why are you trying so desperately for that takedown? I honestly, in my opinion, not talking any crap on the guy, in my opinion, it's because he understood that I have the disadvantage right here on the feet. If I'm going to win this round, I got to get him to the floor.
Nice. I like the way you justified that. That's probably the reason why we need people with fight experience judging fights. I think it's crazy. Like, usually people who judge like dance competitions are former dancers. People who judge figure skating have figure skated. Like, why don't we have people? But probably I'm going to talk myself in a circle here. The answer is because we don't have that many people who are retired from fighting yet, because it's still a fairly new sport. Let's see. So that was a close fight. Another close fight in my book. Fight of the night. I don't know if you caught this one. Trevin Giles and James Krause. Credit to James Krause taking this fight on like 24 hours notice and moving up in weight, and had an absolute war with Trevin Giles. Dominated the first round, which one of the judges scored to Trevin Giles. I heard. I didn't fact check this. Somebody texted me and said one of the judges gave the first round to Trevin Giles. I don't know how, or if that's true, and they were just trolling me and trying to get me to say it on the air without me fact checking it, because I'm not big on fact checking. If that's what you were doing, then good job, you did it. But did you catch this one, Matt?
I didn't manage to catch it, no.
All right, so super close, super back and forth. This was a split decision that probably should have gone to Krause, but it could have gone either way. Giles was in some really bad situations with James Krause attached to his back for minutes. And that's huge. To have somebody on your back for minutes in a fight, that's a lot of control. But credit for Giles for hanging in there and not getting submitted, because James Krause, high-level jiu-jitsu, probably was just a little bit undersized and maybe like a little bit out of fight shape to move up in weight. But man, you got to respect the guy for stepping up and making it competitive and controlling a lot of the fight. Give me your thoughts, even though you didn't see the fight, on him just taking this on 24 hours notice, a weight class up.
So for those that don't know, I'm a bantamweight, and like I said, I walk around pretty light. 4 of my 6 fights are at 145 pounds, and 3 of them I took on 24 hours notice at 145. So I literally stepped on the scale with clothes on, and I was like 141, 143. And the reason why is because it's hard to get fights for me sometimes as a bantamweight. I'm not heavy, but I'm 5'11" at bantamweight, you know? Mm-hmm. And when you train in a certain area, you meet sparring partners, you spot sparring partners, and then they go back and tell their friends, like, oh, you got a fight next week, and who are you fighting? And they're like, yeah, that guy actually, he's about it. You know what I mean? So that's what happens. So I can tell you right now, even though in my head I'm like, oh, I'm a Marine, I'm a badass, who cares? Like, that's why I do that dumb shit. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I go home and I'm like, why the hell did I just take a fight on 24 hours notice to a guy that could be weighing like 165 right now, 170? Yeah. So, and that's at my level. So in my opinion, that's probably the most gangster move this guy's ever done. There are no easy fights in the UFC. Okay, there are certain exceptions where someone gets put into the card to help boost someone up. We all know this, okay? Yeah. We all know what happens. There's been some celebrities from other sports. I'm not going to trash on guys that have tried. You know who I'm talking about. All right. But to go in there in confidence, and like you said, he didn't know he was going to have a fight that day. Yeah. You know? So to go in there on short notice, true short notice, right? Not being in a fight camp. And I'm sure he trains every day, right? But not mentally not being in a fight camp, right? And to fight up a guy the weight above you in the UFC, that just shows his mentality. Yeah. Like, he believes in himself. So that's huge. Sure. Big props to that guy.
For some people, it's even a mental advantage, because for some people at fight camp can be mentally draining. I've talked to a lot of fighters over the years, and some of them like the idea of, like, if I could just bypass all the build up to the fight and just get in there and fight, right, it would probably be better for me. I mean, we've seen it work out for Michael Bisping. He won a world championship that way. But other people have a different mentality where they need to be organized. Everything has to go perfectly right for 10 weeks before they get in the cage. Right. And if it doesn't, then they're thrown off mentally. There's so many different approaches to it. And there's no right one. It's like a proper diet. There's no right diet that works for everybody. There's no right mental approach that works for everybody. And that's not just fighters. That's people in general. Not everybody thinks the same way. In any case, can I assume that you didn't catch the rest of the prelims here?
No, I didn't catch most of those.
I'll just go over these pretty high level. There's just a couple of things I want to touch on. Lauren Murphy and Andrea Lee had a split decision that was really close. At the end of the fight, it did not look like Lauren Murphy won the fight. She got lumped up pretty good. I kind of favored Lee in this one, but it was close. Katlyn Williams with a nasty knockout over Alex Morano. If you guys missed that one, go back and check that one out. Mario Bautista, flying knee knockout over Miles Johns, who Miles Johns was undefeated going into this, I believe. So go back and check that one out. Here's one I want to talk about. Journey Newson against Domingo Pilarte. So Domingo Pilarte, much like yourself, 6 feet tall, 135 pounds. And the guy is jacked. Like, it doesn't look to me like he could possibly make 135 pounds if you look at this guy. Kind of looks like Kenny Florian too. So Journey Newson, 5'5", Looks like a bantamweight. These guys, it looked like he was in there with a middleweight. But Newson coming away with the knockout, and it was beautiful the way he set it up. So he got caught with a head kick early on in the fight. He got rocked badly. This fight only lasted 38 seconds, but a lot happened in that 38 seconds. Got rocked up against the cage, recomposed himself, got back in there. Pilarte got a little over anxious and came with a looping punch, and Newson saw it coming and just got off that center line and returned one back to him that put him down hard. So the fact that he has the power at 5'5" to knock out a guy that's 6 foot and like huge, like doesn't rightfully look like he should be 135 pounds. I thought it was an awesome win for Journey Newson. So he's somebody to keep an eye on at 135 pounds. I think that's a name you're going to be hearing a lot.
It's not over till it's over.
That's true.
There's been some fights where I have rocked some people, and I'm in my head, I'm not even kidding, I've seen in the video where I put a guy down on his ass, and I was like, holy crap, like I did it. I just knocked him out. Dude's up on your legs, you're getting taken down somehow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, you gotta keep that killer mentality and really just go until that ref saves this man's life. So.
Yeah. There are some people in there who are looking for a way out and will stay down, and there are some people in there who just come back to life, like Tyson Fury against Deontay Wilder. I mean, I think that's the craziest example I've ever seen of a guy who was dead. Like,
yeah, Jorge Masvidal, bless his soul, is always tweeting hashtag, the resurrection, but that man was literally resurrected from the dead. I don't know how he got up from that.
It's that gypsy magic. Here's the other one that this was the worst decision on the whole card. It was Andre Ewell against Jonathan Martinez. Ewell outstruck Martinez, but Martinez was pressuring forward the whole fight. And it's not the fact that I thought Martinez should have won. It was a close fight. I could see it being a split decision, but one judge gave it 30-27 to Andre Ewell, and that was just a ridiculous score because Martinez did a lot of damage. He easily won one round. He could have won two. If he won the fight, it wouldn't have been a robbery. Obviously, one judge thought he won the fight. I think he broke Ewell's wrist with a kick. He was fucking him up with low calf kicks. Ewell was landing more, and he was landing some pretty big shots. But Martinez was controlling the fight. The fact that the only thing I have a problem with was the judge that gave 30-27 to Ewell, because this was a really close fight, and he definitely didn't win all 3 rounds. And that's all I got. Any kind of closing thoughts on 247 here?
Not really anything that we haven't touched on. I really like your comment about how we should have judges separated, maybe watch a live stream, right? But I think on top of that, they should be separated from each other.
Yeah.
Who knows what goes down there? We watch these fights live. We know they sit close to each other. I mean, who's to say? A lot of people bash on Joe Rogan because they think sometimes – I love Joe Rogan, guys. I'm not going to lie. Listen, we're not going to let Stephen A. Smith go out there and commentate on these fights, all right? We know that, okay? But Joe Rogan has a lot of knowledge. And, yeah, some of the things he could be saying could sound biased towards one fighter. So the question is, when the judges are sitting near him, like, does that word of mouth – get into their head. And now next thing you know, they're sitting here watching a fight or maybe texting, right? And they're looking at the judges next to them, and they say one thing, and now it influences all of them, right? Because we know from social experience, you take one psychology class, you'll see videos on how easily human beings are influenced by other human beings.
Oh, sure.
No one ever wants to make their own assessment. They want to wait for everyone else, and that's what happens. So I think not only you're right, should they not be right there, right? They need to be away from each other so they can have an honest, no-pressure view of who won that fight.
Where you have the one judge who's sitting right in front of Jon Jones's grandma who's he's screaming every time. And we know how,
sympathy, man.
Yeah, we know how family members and cornermen, it's an actual tactic to try and influence the match. Like, oh, that was a great shot you landed right there. Trying to influence the referee, or like, he's holding him down, ref. We need to stand up, and like all stuff like this that cornermen will try to do. Let's take a quick look at the fights we got coming up next week because, you think about what could be next for Jon Jones, and I think the answer is probably the winner of Corey Anderson and Jan Blachowicz. So next week in New Mexico, we got UFC Fight Night 167, headlined by Corey Anderson and Jan Blachowicz. This is a rematch. Both of these guys have been on a tear lately. I'm really excited for this fight. Do you think the winner gets a title shot, and how do you think this one goes down?
This is a hard one for me to answer because that fight is going to leave we're only hours away from what happened last night, right? Mm-hmm. That fight left so many questions. Dana White even commented that he thought Reyes won 3-2. Uh-huh. So Corey Anderson, Jan Blachowicz, that's very exciting to look forward to. They had a close fight last time. That Polish power is going to be interesting. I think he's got some newfound confidence lately. Mm-hmm. That fight's not going the distance, by the way, in my head. Someone's getting knocked the fuck out. Mm-hmm. Now, if Reyes doesn't get the immediate rematch, and you have to ask yourself, does he want the immediate rematch? Does he want to grow and beat other people, get his confidence back? Or does he feel like, hey, I can go in there and in a few months' time make the corrections I need to beat Jon? Yeah. We'll see. But, yes, I agree. I think they are the next fight, but it just depends. Yeah. Is there the instant rematch? Or are they going to let him fight someone else?
History tells us when there's a close championship fight, the contender usually doesn't get a rematch if they don't win, even if it was really close. So, and if Jan Blachowicz has an impressive knockout a week after Jon Jones wins, that's built-in marketing. Yeah, does everybody want to see another 5-round fight between Jones and Reyes, which we just saw, or do we want to see this Polish hammer get in there with Jon Jones? Conversely, with Corey Anderson, if Corey Anderson gets in there and smashes Blachowicz, we're probably going to want to see that fight. It's just the way we work. People are going to forget real quick about Reyes, and there's a lot of people right now that are outraged, but outrage fizzles out. Quickly. Faster than a firecracker in a bucket of water. People will forget in a couple of weeks, like, oh, Reyes won 3-2. And in a couple of weeks, like, I don't even remember watching Jon Jones fight, and this is most people I'm talking about, not people who are involved in the sport. Definitely not listeners of this show. You guys are going to remember what you thought about Jon Jones, Dominick Reyes. Here's the fight I'm really fucking excited for. Diego Sanchez and Michel Pereira. This is going to be a circus because these are two guys. Pereira comes in there like doing like cartwheels and somersaults and jumping off the cage. And Diego Sanchez is just a fucking savage, like king of the savages.
Yeah, I want to know, like, what is the environment of the room where these meetings go down? Like, there's just that guy in the back, he's on his phone, his legs are crossed, or talking. He's like, oh, what about this, right? Like, what about this fight? And everyone sits there, and they're just like, yeah, fuck it, why not? Like, why don't we just put that in there? But you're right. This man is a circus, right?
Yeah.
Pereira, good Lord, dude. Backflips in the octagon while fighting? Like, that's some movie stuff, You look at that, and, like, all your friends watching up, like, I used to grow up watching, like, Jackie Chan movies, right? And you grow up, and when you become an adult, you're like, that shit doesn't happen in real fighting. And then you see this guy, right? You're like, okay, I guess it does happen. Yeah. And we all know Diego, all right? The guy believes that if he goes out in a lightning storm, he's going to absorb energy to make himself strong. So you put these two in the same octagon, yeah, man, it's not going to be boring. I promise you that. So
yeah, and
look out.
And Diego Sanchez just like ageless. I mean, the last guy left from season 1 of Ultimate Fighter, and he doesn't look a day older than he did on that show. It's the guy has figured out how to, like, he's found the fountain of youth or something.
Lightning, man.
So we've rarely seen Diego Sanchez knocked out. There was the TKO against BJ Penn where his face was just gushing blood. But I can't recall ever seeing him put out cold except against
Matt Brown
with that elbow.
That elbow is nasty.
If Pereira can somehow put him out cold, I think that's his only chance, because we saw in Pereira's last fight, once all that flashy stuff wore off and he got tired, he got smashed by a lightweight who was brought in to get destroyed, to be a highlight reel for this guy, if we're being honest. But once he empties that gas tank, he's going to be in trouble. against a guy who has no empty on his gas tank. I mean, Diego Sanchez will not stop unless you turn his brain off. So that's why I think this is the most exciting fight on this card. Another one that's really exciting to me, Yancy Medeiros and Lando Venata. These are two guys who are very unorthodox strikers, very aggressive. We've seen one of the greatest fights I've ever seen was Lando Venata and Matt Frevola, who
Steamroller.
I know you're familiar with. And I've talked about that fight so many times. I was campaigning for that to be fight of the year so bad that year. But
they got robbed by Weidman and Jacare that night.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
It didn't even get fight of the night.
Yeah,
it should have been
crazy.
It was one of the wildest fights. I always tell people, like, if you're new to this show, if you're a long-time listener, you're sick of hearing me talk about this. But if you're new to the show, go watch Lando Venata and Matt Steamroller Frevola. In any case, Medeiros and Venata, both very aggressive styles. Tim Means and Daniel Rodriguez, same thing. These guys are going to meet in the middle and just be swinging on each other. That's a fun fight. I'm going to rattle off a bunch, and then you tell me which ones stick out to you the most. John Dodson and Nathaniel Wood.
Let's see that John Dodson is an exciting, explosive man. It's very, very fun to watch that guy.
Yeah, but very tactical too.
Yeah.
Like he can be very patient, and he's got a really high fight IQ. Jim Miller, Scott Holtzman. That's a tough fight. Two like really durable guys in there. Ray Borg and Rogerio Bontorin. I'm not too familiar with Bontorin, but he's 16-1. Casey Kenny and Merab Dvalishvili. Merab is a fucking machine. I've heard stories of this guy in the training room, and he'll spar 5 rounds straight and then be looking for fresh guys to spar with. Like they can't get him to stop.
Yeah. He's a Steamroller's teammate, actually. So I've heard some pretty crazy stories about the guy myself.
Yeah. He's coming out of Law MMA. Supposedly they can't find anybody that wants to fight this guy, but Casey Kenny wants to fight him. So it's tough. It's a tough thing because Merab, the guy's a nightmare to deal with. But he doesn't have the greatest record in the UFC. So
you don't want to lose to that, right?
Yeah, if you're a bantamweight, it's like, why do I want to get in there with this animal when it doesn't give me that much of a bump to beat him, which puts Merab in a shitty situation. And then the former champ, Nico Montano, getting back in there against Macy Kiasen, Mark De La Rosa, and Raulian Paiva. Not familiar with those guys either, if I'm being honest, but I will be by next week. Promise you guys. I always like to get the names right. It's like a bit of an OCD thing, and I feel like I'm out there in the media. I should be saying people's names right, but
it's professional.
I try, but then I also drink a lot too. So, so that's the last question I have for you. I know you said you do the music festivals and you do a little bit of partying. I usually prefer to drink with fighters when we're doing this, but you're a week away from a fight, so I'm not gonna peer pressure you into that. I know how your coaches feel about that as well.
Oh, yeah.
I happen to be familiar with them. But if you were not in fight camp, are you someone who dabbles in adult beverages?
To be honest, I'm not a big drinker anymore.
Okay.
I like to say that I already put my liver through its punishment back in the old Jarhead days because let me tell you, and my grandfather actually was a Marine, and he told me 3 things. He said a Marine can fight, drink, and fuck. All right? So as a young man growing up, traveling the world, going to different countries, I had my fair share of drinking, but every now and then, maybe we can catch me after this fight or before another big event, and I'll gladly sit down and I'll have a glass with you.
All right. Well, we'll only ask you to prove 2 of those 3 things publicly. But
surprise! I'm making my entry into porn, guys.
Hey, stranger things have happened. We got a gay porn star who's a bare knuckle boxer. So
that's life.
Yeah, that is life. So this took a turn. In any case, when you do drink, what's the drink of choice? I always have to ask everybody.
I used to be a Jack and Coke guy. That's like what I like to sip on. Hell, even at one point in time, I don't know I ever did this to myself. It led to many blackouts. But yeah, I used to be a Long Island guy.
Okay.
I don't know why. That's just what I liked when I was younger. I used to love drinking Long Island's. Terrible hangovers.
Yeah, strong drinks, a lot of sugar.
Strong drinks, a lot of sugar. And that is what it is. I mean, I don't really have a preference, but if I'm sitting down having a conversation with someone, Jack and Coke.
All right. Well, Jack and Coke. You heard it. February 15th, Mini Reg Hall, Largo, Florida. Matt Allison will be putting his Vigilant MMA Bantamweight Championship on the line against Javier Gonzalez. So go check that out for tickets. Don't forget to add his name when you buy your tickets online so he gets credit for that. It helps build his reputation with the promoter, and sometimes there's commissions involved there depending on the contract. So help the fighters out. Don't forget that step. Or you can catch the live stream on the Vigilant MMA website as well. Matt, let the people know once again where they can find you on social media, and if you have any shout outs, sponsors, teammates that you want to shout out, the floor is yours, my friend.
So you can find me on Instagram at Matty Ice MMA. And as far as sponsors go, I am on Team Reaper, so I am sponsored by Rip Life One. The owner's name is Ryan. He's a great guy, super veteran friendly, and his whole mission is to go out and support fighters. He makes all of our shirts for us. We don't have to pay for them. We get $10 off of every shirt. So the guy really takes care of us. He really just wants to promote MMA, not just here in Tampa, but all across the board. The guy's awesome. He's always in my inbox. Love it. I'm also sponsored by Locks Hair Wax Company, all right? If you've ever looked at me when I'm going out and you've wondered how that comb over gets so mean, I know I got a hat right now, which, by the way, boom, Rip Life, thank you very much. but Locks Hair Wax Company, thank you to Jerry Ohm, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. That's where I get all the service done on my Jeep. It's been an honor getting to meet the general manager, Joey. The guy always takes care of me, and I believe if he can get off work in time, he will be at my fight next weekend. So thank you for that. And then the last shout-out I'm going to give is Activate Performance. So it's a strength and conditioning company here in Tampa. The owner's name is Adam. He's a great guy. He's been taking care of me for years. When I have breaks in between school and fighting, that's where I go in and get my workouts in. The guy's phenomenal. I'm telling you, if you've got teenagers in sports, if you want to be a professional athlete, he'll get you where you need to be.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, make sure you check out Matt's fight next week. Hit him up on social media. Check out his sponsors. Matt, thanks for your time, my man. Appreciate you
my man.
Coming on the show. You guys know how to get a hold of me. It's at MMA on the Rocks everywhere on social media. That's all we got. Until next time. Cheers, everybody. Goodbye.